Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now with our phone with Ms. Jala El Hadidi, the mezzo-soprano, the first Egyptian mezzo-soprano. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hi.
Hi. Hello. I really had the pleasure to have this phono with you. Ms. Hadidi, give us an idea about your experience. You are the first Egyptian soprano, so give us an idea about this, please.
Well, I'm an Egyptian mezzo-soprano, that's a voice type, and I live abroad. I've been singing abroad for the past 16 years. Of course, I graduated from Egypt, and then I left to the United States, and now I currently reside in Germany. I'm the first Egyptian who ever sung Carmen, which is a main opera in Germany and Europe. I sang it in 7 countries, and I'm the first ever to sing a title role in Europe.
I'm glad to hear these achievements, of course. Give me an idea also about your experience in performing abroad in several countries, as I can see that you have performed in Switzerland, Germany, France, and Belgium.
Well, my experience has been a wonderful experience. Of course, people usually have raised eyebrows as soon as they read that there's an Egyptian conquering the opera world, as they say, because I don't sing concerts, only concerts, I sing operas, and that's like a performance of 3 to 4 hours that needs a certain stamina. It's in several languages, depending on which opera we're doing. So it was I always had a very warm welcome in all those countries that I sang in. But I have to say nothing beats the Egyptian audience, because the Egyptian audience is usually more proud and more intimate with an Egyptian artist, you know?
Yes. So, Ms. Hadidi, I would like to ask you about that you are the first Egyptian woman to perform the opera Carmen. So, why is Carmen very important for the career of an opera singer? Because it's hard, or give me an idea about this, please.
Well, as I said, my voice is mezzo-soprano, so it's an important role for anyone who sings the fach of mezzo-soprano. So not all other singers have to sing that role, but it is very imperative in my career. Because first of all, the role is the title role. So the main role is called Carmen, and the opera is called Carmen. And the opera is one of the most famous operas worldwide. It's one of the most recognized music worldwide. So it has a very huge following. So if you perform that on international stages, usually people, you know, listen to
large
that.
Audience, yes, yes, a large number of audience.
Yes, exactly. Yes. The other thing, of course, is a topic related to women's and women's liberation movement, which is that Carmen is a symbol of a liberated woman. So it's an opera that fits in all generations, because there is always someone who can, work with that.
Yes, and that's very good about you. I really admire this choosing also the topic of the story of the opera you are singing. What are the other topics or names of the opera that you have performed?
I have performed, well, aside from Carmen, I have performed the famous opera of Hänsel and Gretel. I've performed the opera of Elektra. I'm the first Egyptian and Arab to ever perform a Wagner opera, a main role in Wagner. That's a German composer who composes really difficult operas, and they're very long. They're 5 hours long. And the opera is called Tannhäuser, just to name a few.
Yes, that's very important that you have performed to the composer Wagner, and his opera is very difficult and lasts for 4 hours. What did this experience add to your career?
First of all, they kind of solidify your career. First of all, they solidify your presence in the business, because usually many singers would sing operas that have a general following and a general liking until 3 hours. But once you start going beyond that, you need a physical stamina and a vocal stamina that's quite strong, and it speaks volumes to you as an artist, you know. To also conquer the world of German composers, because those are very, very difficult to sing.
Yes, you are, Ms. Hadidi, you are an Egyptian. And you know that ancient Egyptians started everything in the world, and Egypt is the place where everything started in this world, and Egypt taught the whole world a lot, of course. And concerning singing, give me an idea about this, that you know that the ancient Egyptians were very fond of singing, and they may be yeah, we all know that the opera originated in Italy, but the pharaohs also used to sing in a kind of opera.
Well, of course, Egypt being one of the first civilizations ever,
Yes.
it's imperative, of course, that they would have the field of music as well, next to astrology, astronomy. No, astronomy wasn't back then, but astrology definitely, medicine, engineering, and so forth. So music was, of course, a recognized practice, and now in Egypt, Egyptologists are making the discoveries of ancient music notation somehow, which is how music is played. We still don't 100% know how they sung or how they performed, but there are a lot of murals even that show that there are Egyptian musicians, the famous 3 musicians, the famous 3 female musicians. So that speaks also volumes to how do you call it? How developed and liberated Egypt was even back then, to be
Yes.
amongst the first countries, civilizations, to have women singing. Because maybe you know that opera, when it started, this classical singing, when it started in Europe, it was actually started by men, not by women.
Yes.
So the difference is that in Egypt you actually had female singers, whereas the rest of the world was still a bit sort of retarded.
That's a very
only males.
yeah, that's a very important point that you have just mentioned now, the role of women. Yeah, give me an idea about this history of the role of women in this field.
The history, well, as I just mentioned, the history is documented in Egypt that the musicians, at least the famous 3 musicians that we have on murals, are women. Whereas, I don't know, it's a known fact for Europe, where classical music started out of the Catholic Church, that it started by men because women were not allowed to be present publicly or to perform theater publicly. And Egypt has already been a forerunner in that, to the extent that actually on the 28th of September, I have the pleasure of performing the opening ceremony of She Art Festival in its 3rd edition. Okay, it will start on the 28th of September, and the festival lasts till the 1st of October, but I'm doing the opening ceremony. And the interesting thing about the She Art Festival is the fact that it's a festival that's about women, and women musicians and women performers. So I'm the performer, accompanied by a beautiful orchestra, all women. Nobody on stage is a man, and even the conductor this year is a woman as well.
Yes, so Mr. Hadidi, what attracted you to this field since you were young and born in Egypt?
That's actually a famous story. My mother, while she was pregnant, she used to listen to the FM radio, the European, no, what's it called? برنامج الموسيقي.
Yes, the music program, yes.
Exactly, the music program, and the music program in Egypt and the FM used to turn to classical music at night,
Yes,
and that
yes,
was
of
the
course.
time she had a headset around her waist for me as an embryo and as a baby to listen to classical music. I think this was the beginning of my interest in classical music. The other thing is I attended the German school, and the Germans are very, very interested in teaching young students about music, and you always have to develop either the voice or an instrument. And also my several visits to the Cairo Opera House as a child have also attracted me very much to follow that career and to follow that passion.
Yes, so it started all with the taste of the good, cultured woman, which is your mother, of course.
Yes, of course. And we can also say it started exactly with the building that you're sitting in, that the Radio FM, Egyptian Radio FM, made me as an embryo interested in music.
Yes. Yes, this brings us to the importance, of course, of the radio and television in Egypt. Yes. Of course, it provides very good and cultured programs. Also, I would like to ask you about your performance in Egypt. You participated in music festivals in Egypt.
Yes, I
participated in Manial Palace Music Festival.
Yes.
Did you? Yes.
I was, I worked closely with, of course, the famous Egyptian pianist Ramzi Yassa.
Yes.
And Prince Abbas Helmi on actually developing the first festival and the first year of the festival. I've been singing years in the Manial Palace, but when it became an official festival, I was the opening act, as they say. And ever since I've been in close relationship, I consider them my musical family in Egypt, and I've been singing in that festival yearly, and it's coming up again in November. With me this year, and Nader Abbasi as the beautiful maestro that we have.
Yes, of course. So also we'd like to know some news or information about your future plans. What are the coming concerts that you are going to participate, or operas that you're going to participate in?
In Egypt or abroad?
Abroad. Or in Egypt, even in Egypt.
Yes, when it comes to Egypt, I will start my first concert this season, as I said, in the She Arts Festival. Miss Niveen Inawi from the Biblioteca Alexandrina, and who is the creator of this festival, called me to invite me to perform at the opening concert for that festival, and it will be my first time. And in November, I have the Manial Palace Festival, and in December, I have my baby, which is my concert at the Cairo Opera House, which is the Christmas concert at the Cairo Opera House, and it's been running for years. That's like my baby.
Yes.
And in Europe, I'm going now back to Europe to start rehearsing for Opera Carmen. I have a new performance, which is the 8th production I will do of this opera. With every time, of course, it's with a different director and conductor and opera house. So this year, I'm performing Carmen in a very modern production of Carmen in northern Germany.
Yes. I thank you very much for your time. I wish you the best of luck in every step you take. Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you for hosting me, and have a wonderful time.
It's my pleasure. I really have the honor to have you with us over the phone.
The pleasure is all mine, and thank you to everyone listening in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We thank Ms. Jala El Hadidi, the mezzo-soprano, the first Egyptian mezzo-soprano. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break, and I'm going to be back with you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the Egyptian tennis table champion Hana Gouda has booked her place at the top of the world rankings for juniors under 15 and 17. She have succeeded in achieving first place and gold medals in several competitions. We are going to know more in the following report about Hana Gouda.